Welcome everyone to Swimming with Sharks Adventures in Sales Ops. Thanks for joining us today. And wherever you're joining us from, please let us know. Let us know on Facebook, on Twitter, wherever you're joining us from today. Let's talk. Let's have a conversation. Today we have a great show, Season 1, Episode 11. I'm excited to bring back to the Shark Tank Kevin Dean, the CEO and founder of ManoByte. We had such a great conversation last time. I'm excited to bring him back today. So let us jump right into it. Today's adventure, we have an introduction, and we're doing it right now. And so we're going to jump right into the interview. We're going to skip some of the other prior stuff or preamble before the interview, and we're going to jump right into the interview because we really want to get to know Kevin and his thoughts on a very important topic. We've heard about this already. I'm seeing this. Predictions for 2021, what you should do for 2021. And I think it's important that we get and reflect a little bit on what happened in 2020 and then get a few predictions. And who else can do that better than Kevin Dean? So I'm excited to bring him back. And then we'll end up with a question for you, ladies and gentlemen. And so in our show today, we have Kevin Dean joining us. And if you don't know Kevin, well, he's a pretty important guy, but also he does a lot of great stuff. He scuba dives in the Red Sea. He has attended dozens of Broadway productions and loved most of them. He is a musician as well. So, of course, he and I connect on that level. I don't necessarily play the bass or the guitar. I do play the piano, though. So Kevin enjoys playing the bass and guitar, and many of his family members do the same. He prefers whiskey over scotch. He is the CEO and founder of ManoByte. Please, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the Shark Tank, back to the Shark Tank, Kevin Dean. Welcome, Kevin.
Hey.
Good to have you with us today, Kevin. Really appreciate you joining us today on the 11th episode of Swimming with Sharks.
This is exciting, and this is going to be a lot of fun. Looking forward to having this conversation.
Yeah, me too. Last time we had such a great conversation, and I'm really looking forward to what we have to talk about today. But first, let me ask you this. I have never asked you this, and so I have to know. What is your go-to order at your favorite hometown restaurant?
Yeah, so first off, I'll tell you that actually my wife is a really good cook. And so she makes some amazing meals every single day. But I think there's a restaurant here in Grand Rapids, Michigan, a Mexican restaurant called La Catina. It is our stop, and they have the most amazing tacos and nachos. We just go there and pick out. It's great. Well, and I'll say, we're in the middle of a pandemic. We don't actually go into the restaurant anymore, but they actually have a drive-through, which is very cool. And we just love their nachos and tacos. Great stuff.
Right there in Grand Rapids. That's terrific. I really, you're making me hungry. Come on now.
Yeah. I actually thought we might be having, I thought my wife might actually go and pick up tacos today, but she didn't do it. So. Yeah.
Oh, it is Tuesday, Taco Tuesday. Come on.
Taco Tuesday.
We got to make it happen.
Right.
That is good. I like it. Good stuff right there. So tell me a little bit about, we didn't talk about some of these things last time, so let's get a little bit into your history. What compelled you to start ManoByte? What were you doing? Were you just kind of right out of school where you're like, I'm going to start my own agency? How did this all happen?
Yeah. So, I've told this story several times, and I'll just tell a different spin on the story. Prior to starting ManoByte, I'd worked at several Fortune 500 companies. And the thing that compelled me to start ManoByte is I really wanted to focus on creating solutions instead of having to be worried about all of the corporate politics that you have to go through, which can sometimes sidebar actual progress and solutions that will actually drive deals for companies.
So you just one day just said, that's it, I'm done, Jerry Maguire style. How did that all happen?
It was very much a Jerry Maguire style exit. Yeah. So I was actually on vacation, scuba diving in Hawaii,
There you go.
when I said like I'm done. Like I've had enough. And so on the flight back home, I was talking to my wife, and I was like, I'm done. She's like, okay. And so I literally it was the weekend. We're flying home. That Monday, went in and quit. I mean, it was just literally that
Wow.
simple. I was
It's
just
magic.
done for the new adventure.
The magic of Hawaii just overtook you and really brought those thoughts to surface and then into action.
Yeah, I think that I was just ready to do something different. Um, and actually, on the way out there, I was reading a book by a wonderful lady named Denise Schiffman, and the book was called Age of Engage. And it really kind of got my mindset into, oh, okay, this is what needs to get done, and here's what I need to be doing. And I knew that I couldn't do that where I was at, and I'm like, okay, well, this is it. So, like, I actually contacted her. So after I got back and I quit, I actually called her up and said, hey, I love your book. It was awesome, inspiring. Tell me more about it. And we connected, and yeah, it was pretty cool. She's a great lady.
And the rest, as they say, is history.
It's history. Yeah, that's
So
it.
tell me a little bit about this journey, this history of being the CEO of ManoByte. Take us from the first day. What was that like?
Yeah, so the journey has been a roller coaster ride. It's had its ups, it's had its downs. Um, and interestingly enough, so I quit the company. I quit the job that I was at, started ManoByte. And really, when it started, it was all around helping people understand how to leverage social media. And there was a lot of education going on, helping people understand. People would ask me, well, what is Twitter and why would I use Facebook for business? Those were a lot of the questions that I would get. And so it was a lot of trying to convince that people that they really needed to do this. I remember going into a large corporation and explaining to them why they needed Twitter and how they could actually leverage it to grow their it was a hotel chain, large organization here in Grand Rapids, and explained to how they need to leverage Twitter, especially around lunchtime, to promote their meals. And they literally were angry and said, "You don't know what you're talking about. Get out of here." And it's funny, now they have a huge, robust Twitter and social media strategy. When I was the one who was crazy at the time. So a lot of that was happening. And during that time, reflect back to where we are now, literally months into starting the company, it was when we had the last economic downturn. And so literally I quit my job, started a new company, and then ushers in an economic downturn. And that was very interesting to say, here I am in the middle of an economic downturn, and I quit a stable job, stable company, and trying to go out and do this thing on my own. There were definite challenges, not too dissimilar to what some companies are seeing right now. So I can definitely relate to the struggles, but we made it through, and here we are today. So.
Can you give us a little timeline? Is that around like 2008? What was the
2008 is when we started the company. 2009 is when the last economic downturn really came in, and so yeah, that first year was a really tough year.
yeah.
First couple of years were really tough years.
So how do you push through? I mean, you obviously have the experience. You could have just said, you know what, I'm done. I can go back to the stable job. How do you get yourself to push through something like that? That's so difficult.
I think you have to be focused, right? And you have to think about this is what I'm going to do. This is what's going to cause, this is what's going to help me to get where I want to be. You've got to be passionate about it. You've got to do it because you have to do it not because of the money, but because you know it's the right thing and you truly are into it, right? So I think that's what gets anybody through is the motivation and the reasons behind why you do something. If I was in it just for the money, I would have gone back to corporate America, but that wasn't my main motivator or driver.
So more intrinsic, inside motivation versus the external or extrinsic motivation, just the money.
Yeah, I think that's part of it, and I think it's just probably core of who I think I'm a true entrepreneur at heart, right? And I can't rip that out and do something different. And so that's just kind of part of my makeup.
No economic downturn, pandemic's going to rip that out of you. So
yeah,
truly you're an entrepreneur. That definitely shines through right there.
It's good stuff.
So tell me, all right, tell me your favorite movie and, or a movie, actually tell me a movie that you have watched over and over again and why.
Yeah. So that's a great question. I definitely am into movies. I think there's probably two, and they're both older movies, which would make it possible for me to watch them over and over and over again. The Count of Monte Cristo is actually one of my all-time favorite movies. I think this kind of relates to like who I am at the core of a person. To see him go through a lot of difficult times and then come out on top just because he worked on who he was and became a better version of himself and learned how to, master, his craft. I think that's a great story. So that's one of my favorite movies that I watch all the time. So there's probably three. The second, but I will only tell you two. The second movie that I just find fascinating is Inception. So Inception is a movie that I watch all the time. I love it. I think it fascinates me because I'm so into the way that people think. It fascinates me how the mind and the brain works. And so I think that, that's a movie that I just find, amazing. And so that's another movie that I watch all the time.
Inception is an incredible movie, and I recently just watched it. It's funny you bring that up. It seems like every time you watch it, you find something new that you just haven't discovered before, and so that makes it rewatchable. Watch it again.
That's it.
Now, on the Cast of Monte Cristo, did you read the book first? Your first movie, did you read the book first and then say, "I got to see this movie," or was it the other way around?
Yeah. So. I'm sure and I'm certain that I read the book as a teenager, right? And so that genre of, the Count of Monte Cristo, the Three Musketeers, those were kind of staple reads as a young kid. So I think, but by the time I watched the movie, it had been long. That's a classic book, right? That's a classic book. Right? And so, I hadn't seen or watched. I hadn't read that book in decades.
It all just came back when you watched the movie. That's
yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about. I'm starting to see all these posts that are like, "Hey, how does 2021 is coming and 2020 is let's just forget about it." I mean, we're getting down to the wire here, and it seems like a lot of people are almost giving up on 2020 because they have so many challenges that have happened this year. So let me ask you let's talk a little bit about 2020. What has been the biggest challenge that you faced this year in 2020?
The biggest challenge that we have faced in 2020, I would have to say would be, and I think that is interesting. I think the biggest challenge that we faced are the mindsets of people. So I don't feel like, sure, we're in the middle of a global pandemic and there's all sorts of other things that are going on that are happening. I don't think that that's been the challenge. I think the challenge is, we want to focus on getting things done. I'm a solutions and a results driven person. Let's just put all that stuff away and let's just focus in on the things that matter and what we need to do. And I think it's been a challenge for me personally to maybe be a little more empathetic with the fact that there's a lot of other things going on that are impacting people, but attitudes, I think, you can control them. But I think it's been a challenge for me to are the attitudes and the mindsets of people, right? You know, everything isn't falling. Yeah, there's lots of challenges, right? There are lots of challenges, but there's always going to be challenges, right? And so it's how you face those challenges is really what matters.
Yeah, that's quite the understatement that there's been challenges this year. I think there've been so many, and then the next almost it seems like people are using it as an excuse to kind of say I want to change my attitude because of all these different things that are happening, and they buy into it rather than focusing on results and what needs to get done. Would you say that's true?
So, I can't speak for everybody. And, I think everybody has had a lot of struggles that they've had to face. But, it's like the thought, goes, you can only control your own personal attitude, your own personal actions. You can't control the world around you, right? But you can control how you think about, how you perceive the things that are happening around you. And you can deal with that, right? And the things that you can't control, why worry about it? If you can't control it, there's nothing you can do about it. So that's the way I look at it.
What has been your most, let's put a nice positive spin on it now. What's been your most satisfying win for 2020?
Yeah. So for me, the most satisfying win that I've seen in 2020 really revolve around the people that I work with every single day, right? To see how our team has grown, how they've flourished, how they have overcome obstacles. I think to me that's great. We've had the privilege of bringing on board some amazing people who've added to our team and our organization, which is also a win. So I think all the wins that I've seen in 2020 really revolve around great people that I get to work with every single day.
I like that. Amen to that. What outside of the pandemic? What's the biggest surprise that you've experienced, good or bad? I'm guessing it's probably going to be good, knowing your personality. So, what's been the biggest surprise of 2020 for you?
The biggest surprise for 2020? That's a great question. Boy, that's a great question. I would say the biggest surprise has been how quickly people have been adopting technology and have been and the speed of change. I think that's been the biggest surprise. How people have said, okay, this is happening. Let's pivot. Let's change. And we've seen change that has happened over the past 8 months that we haven't seen in 8 years. And I think that that's amazing.
Yeah, so many things that people probably tabled and said, we'll get to that one day. Due to the pandemic, we need to do it today. I think it was Amy Post in our second episode. She said, listen, we had to, the building industry had to pivot, and years of progress happened in a matter of months.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
That has been a big surprise, that when you have to do it, when you're almost forced to do it, then it happens.
It does. It really does.
Comes to fruition. Yeah. So what's important to you? So here we are in the last quarter, last couple of weeks of the year. What is the most important thing? I mean, outside of, hey, we want to finish strong, but outside of that, what's the most important thing to you to finish up in this last quarter, these last few weeks of the year?
Yeah. So I think that from my standpoint, I think that we continue to play our game, right? So, I think about it like a football game, like you're going into halftime you just continue playing. The game's not over, right? The game is going to continue. You get a brief breather, and then you're back on the field again. And so, like, in my mind, I say, for us, you just continue to play your game, right? Just continue to play your game, give it everything you've got, and then just keep going.
That's I have to admit, as you know, I'm based in Pittsburgh, and we had quite a comeback win this over the Cowboys this past Sunday. So
Oh,
that's
man.
definitely true to my heart right there. So just keep playing, play your game, and do what you normally do, and because you've been there before. So keep
Yeah,
going.
yeah, that's it. That's it.
So what have you recently changed your mind about?
Yeah. Um,
Speaking of pivots.
speaking of pivots, speaking of pivots, most people know that we are a HubSpot partner. We have been for 7 years. We also have other partner relationships that we have and that we've invested in. And so I, I think early on, prior to I think early on we were looking at, should we continue to diversify and build out more partner relationships with other organizations? And so we were looking in those directions. I think I've actually changed my mind to say, we need to just double down with HubSpot. Right? I think that HubSpot has a huge opportunity, and I think that's kind of been a little bit of a pivot from the way that I was looking at how we're going to grow our company. I think that I think we've become really more focused on HubSpot and doubling down on that relationship.
Well, as you know, as a self-professed HubSpot fanboy, you know I love hearing that.
Yeah, that's it.
It's
Right way to
great.
go.
It's good stuff. So what are you researching now? You may not have all the answers, but what are you looking into right now?
Yeah. So I think one of the big things that I think is important is, and one of the things I've spent a lot of time thinking about, are how manufacturers and one and two step distributors can leverage ecosystems to build strategic partnerships and build out, this symbiotic relationship over technology to improve innovation, to improve distribution, to enhance their systems and create a better service level agreement and create a better customer experience. I'm really focused on that right now. Ecosystems are really a new concept that I think from a from a mindset, it's not really that different from what a lot of one step and two step distributors do with their relationships with manufacturers. But how do we take that and really leverage technology to create a better, stronger digital ecosystem and experience?
The word you use, ecosystem, that's, of course, I always think of nature, I always think of science class, I think of things like that, but putting that into a manufacturing and digital component, that's new. And I love the phrase ecosystem. It's this relationship that is symbiotic, and that it simply works.
Yeah, it
So
does. It does.
so is there anything that you recommend that our audience looks at right now? What should they be researching or getting ready for?
Yeah. So I think right now, I really believe that we're in a time where there's a lot of technology, there's a lot of systems, best practices that are already proven and that are there that companies aren't using today. And so my thought is that stop researching, start implementing, right? I think that it's important to get out of this analysis paralysis mindset and pick a path, go down the path, and just if they want to research anything, research how to implement a more agile process within their business system so that they can adjust quickly to changes without disrupting their business.
So almost learn by doing rather than learn by researching and looking at stats and reading and things like that. Just do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Move forward.
Move forward. It's I think it was episode 5 that Renee DeJong just basically said it's like playing Angry Birds, and this was such a great analogy to me because you just keep playing. You just keep and you learn. You take your shot. You learn from it, okay, and then you try again. Next level, you've learned something, and I really like how he simplified that, and I think that's exactly what you're saying. Just stop the analysis paralysis and get in there, get in the weeds, and dig yourself out.
Yeah, there you go.
That's great. So let's talk about next year. Let's bring it into 2021. Even though we're not really done with this year yet, let's bring it into what are you looking forward to in 2021?
Yeah. So in 2021. I'm looking forward to seeing what comes next from the way that people have learned from what they did this year. There's no going back. There's no turning back. So I'm really interested in seeing how the customer experience throughout lots of industries improves. That just, to me, is going to be the big thing that I don't think can ever change, right? There's been so much shift and on-demand, better service, more technology in the way that you digitally implement. And I'm looking forward to see how that continues to progress.
Yeah, because you're absolutely right. We can't go back to, everyone wants to go, I've heard this phrase and hopefully people have learned it. I want to go back to the way things were, or I want to go back to normal, but there's no possible, having lived through 2020, there's no real possible way to going back to whatever we think is normal because we've learned. We've changed.
We've had different experiences, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
And that changed our mindset, whether we realize it or not, it has.
Yeah, whether it's conscious or subconscious, you have been changed. So let's embrace, and I got to agree with you there. That's what I'm looking forward to as well. That once we get to 2021, hopefully people feel like it's almost like a reset, but bringing that experience with them and enacting it into the new year and everything. So what can companies do now, or what can businesses do now in order to prepare for 2021? Because I feel like so many of them have been just kind of doing the best they can and adjusting on the fly. But what can we do now to prepare for 2021?
So I think there's two things that companies need to be doing. From a leadership perspective, I believe that businesses need to probably shift away from a longer strategic cycle and maybe shorten that up to quarterly, right? And so instead of saying I'm planning for the year, let's plan for the quarter, right? I think that's a better way to look at it. And I also think that people need to make sure that they're making the right investments in people and technology and figuring out where that balance is.
So who's going to be, in your prediction, the most successful in 2021? I'm sure they're going to have elements of what you just talked about, but who's going to be most successful in 2021?
Yeah, I believe that those who focus on, those who can see opportunity, focus on that opportunity and adapt quickly to get to that opportunity are going to be the ones that actually are going to be the most successful. And those who try to hold on to where they are, what they had, where they were, are going to, slide quickly.
Very interesting. Very interesting. I got to agree with you there. Holding on to too much can often, you miss out on the new and what's happening next. So, all right, big prediction time. What are your predictions for 2021? Do you have a list? Do you have some bullet points you want to give us? What are your predictions for 2021?
Yeah, so I predict that 2021 isn't going to be drastically different from 2020, right? And that's not like, this major revelation. So I think we're going to see more of the same. I don't think it's going to be drastically different than 2020. So that's kind of my thought. But I think that we really need to, like, instead of predicting like, oh, this is what's going to happen in 2021. I don't have a crystal ball, right? I think that so but this is what I'll say is that 2021 hasn't been a horrible year for everybody. So lots of companies have done great. There's been winners. Lots of companies have done bad. There's been losers, right? So I think that you'll continue to see, from a corporate standpoint, winners, and you'll see losers, right? And we've talked about the reasons why I personally believe that there'll be winners and losers. I think that you'll see a lot of people. I think you'll see people who are surviving. You'll see people who are thriving, and then you'll see people who are giving up, right? And so I think that for 2021, I think everybody has the opportunity to choose where they want to be, right? Do you want to be someone who's thriving, or are you just gonna, curl up, right? I think the choice is everyone's to make, right? And the way that you make that decision are by the actions, the mindset that you have, and what you live by every single day. And I don't think that that's any different from the way that it's ever been.
And quite possibly, it's it's COVID, it's the pandemic that brought all of this really to the surface to make us acutely aware of what is really happening. I mean, really, it's anybody's game, because but it's up to you. Sure, there's a certain amount of luck going on there, but luck does favor the prepared. So go ahead.
So you know what I'll say about that is, everybody has a choice, and there's been a lot of very sad things that have happened. I would guess to say there are very few people who doesn't know someone who was negatively affected by something that happened this year. Yeah. So everyone has been affected in one way or another. We've had our personal losses, just like I'm sure others have too. But the thing about it is this: there's always been cycles, right? There's always been cycles. I don't remember the year, but I was actually surprised. My wife showed me a picture of, I think it was the Spanish flu, right? Spanish flu, people are wearing masks, all across the United States, right? It happened once before, and it happened, right? But everybody has decisions to make that can, impact their lives and their choices that everyone has to make. As a company, ManoByte, early on, before there was this mandate to social distance, we closed down our offices before there was a mandate to close down our office, because we felt that this was the safest thing for our employees, right? And so we social distance. We wear a mask when we go out, and I'm not trying to take any stance, but I just feel that for me, and us, that's been a protection. And so you have to choose. Everybody has a choice. Everybody has a choice, and that impacts their life, their business, whatever they do, in lots of different ways. But that's a choice everybody has.
So with so much going on, how do you stay on top of your game? Whether that's your CEO game, whether that's your parent game, your boss game, how do you stay on top of your game?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that there has to be balance. I think that's the key thing, is figure out how to maintain balance in all that you do. I think it's important to make sure that you have the right information that you need to make the best possible decisions, right? And just do your best to be responsible, right? So as best you can, right? So I think those are the things that I think help me to try to get things, right. If right, for whatever that means.
So let's break that down into a daily kind of challenge, I guess. What does your daily process look like? I'm sure you have set goals that you'd like to reach or set points in your day. What does your daily process look like?
Yeah. So, I think it starts. I get up pretty early. I'm the first one up in our house, and so I get up. I do some personal reading and reflection. So that's kind of important for me. Then, I take a look at, where are we from a scorecard perspective. Take a look at, some financials. Just to kind of level set. Okay, here's where we are. Here's what we need to do. Here's what we need to accomplish. The next thing, go through. Let's review the schedule for the day, prioritize for the day, and then you know what you've got to do, and so you just kind of work through your to-dos and your actions for the day. You go through, you wrap everything up that you can, and then you say, all right, I'm going to go and spend time with family, those who we care about, and then unplug.
Sounds like a good day to me. A good day
Yeah.
to me. Very good. All right. So last question here, but it's kind of a two-part question here. What is the best advice you've ever received, and what's the best advice you'd like to give today? Of course, the answers can be the same, but what have you received, and what would you like to give today?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So I think from an advice standpoint, something that I think stands out to me is, the advice. I think I've gotten, I've heard it from lots of different perspectives, but there's an old proverb that says something like to the effect that, like, if you've seen someone who's masterful at their craft, then they'll be placed in front of kings, right? And so to me, what that means is that, like, if you're really good at something, like, and you focus on that, like the opportunities, right, for you are unlimited, right? And so to me, it's always important to be really good at what you do, whatever that might be. And that kind of falls in line with, I like to read a lot, right? I love Malcolm Gladwell. And his book where he talks about, the 10,000 hour rule, where, if a person focuses on something, they become a master, right, at that. And to me, that's that same philosophy and principle, is that you've got to get really, really good at something. Find what it is that you're passionate about and hone in on that, get really, really good. So I think that's kind of the best advice that I've gotten. And I think that would also kind of go into what advice I would give to others is, find what you're passionate about, focus on your strength, and then build a support system to protect you from your weaknesses.
Oh, that's great. That is, folks, you need to rewind that. If you're not listening to this live, if you're listening to the podcast, you need to rewind that. And that's a clear 3-step plan coming from Kevin Dean. And so, Kevin, thank you so much for joining us today. I always enjoy our conversations, so I'm glad we got to do this again.
Yeah, this is always fun. Love having these conversations.
This is great. Thanks for joining us today on Swimming with Sharks, and we look forward to talking to you soon. Thanks again, Kevin.
Love it. See ya.
Have a good one. We're going to wrap things up, ladies and gentlemen, with a quick question for you. So what are you looking for from Swimming with Sharks? Are there particular guests that you're looking for? Let us know. And so until next time, what we'd like you to do is please engage with us in some way, shape, or form. You know what to do. You know what to do on Facebook, on Instagram, on LinkedIn, wherever you spend time. Find us and answer our question. What do you want to see from Swimming with Sharks? And what guests would you like to have on Swimming with Sharks? And so until next time, please be kind to each other, take care of yourself, and may all your adventures be great. Thanks for joining us today on Swimming with Sharks, Season 1, Episode 11 with Kevin Dean. We look forward to seeing you again next week, Tuesdays at 2. We hope that you'll join us then. Until then,